All right, we are back. Thank you all for jumping right back in. I wanted to make sure that we didn't get cut off, so I'm trying to go to commercial break so that I can keep our flow going. All right, so we are back. And for those of you who may just be jumping in, we are on part 2 and we're looking at the Daily Stoic, which is 366 meditations on wisdom, perseverance, and the art of living. In the first segment, we talked about 2 qualities here, the color of your thoughts and be wary of what you let in. The second segment, we are now starting with a principle called deceived and divided. Deceived and divided. Seneca writes in his moral letters, circumstances are what deceive us. You must be discerning in them. We embrace evil before good. We desire the opposite of what we once desired. Our prayers are at war with our prayers. Our plans with our plans. Wow. This is pretty powerful because, well, I'll just read the commentary and then I'll make my own comments. It says, a woman says, and I thought about Prophet Jonathan when I read this because he does a devotion to women online, and I encourage you to check that out. A woman says she wants to meet a nice guy and get married, yet she spends all her time around jerks. A man says that he wishes he could find a great job. A man says that he wishes he could find a great job, but he hasn't actually bothered to do the looking. Business executives try to pursue 2 different strategies at the same time, and they are shocked when they succeed at neither strategy. All of these people, just as is often true for us, are deceived and divided. One hand is working against the other. And has anybody seen somebody who's trying to do something, and maybe, right? I'm trying to pick up this glass, right? But one hand wants to pick it up and the other hand wants to press it down. One hand wants to pick it up, but the other hand wants to press it down. One hand is trying to pick it up and the other hand is trying to press it down. What they're saying is, you are working at odds with your own desires. A lot of people in the body of Christ do it. Like he said, you have someone who says, I want to be married, but then they never do anything towards that end or towards that goal. Right? Or they join 50 singles groups, talking amongst single people and not really getting any real world advice from married people. You done been to 50 single conferences and it's only April. Why do you keep going to singles conferences if you want to be married? I'm just saying. So they're saying your prayers are at war with your own prayers and your plans are at war with your own plans. All right? Goes into that a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. In other words, you're not going to get much done because you have this divisiveness going on in you, and you're deceiving yourself. Because on one hand, you're saying, I want this, and on the other hand, you're doing all the things that work against what you say you want. Okay? One hand is working against the other. As Martin Luther King Jr. once put it, there is something of a civil war going on within all of our lives. A war inside each individual between the good parts of their soul and the bad. The Stoics say that war is usually a result of our conflicting desires, our screwed up judgments, or our biased thoughts. We don't stop and ask ourselves, what do I really want? What do I really want? What am I actually after? What is my true goal? Because if we did, we'd notice the contradictory and inconsistent wishes that we have. Now, I don't know about you, but that's kind of a pet peeve for me, that if I'm going somewhere and I'm with a group of people and I'm with a group of people who cannot make a decision, chances are I'm going to say deuces and I'm going to go my own way. I'm just being realistic. And God forbid if I'm on a trip with a whole group of people who cannot make a decision on anything. They can't make, like, for example, you go to a theme park. They might spend 20 minutes trying to decide what ride they should get on first. I have zero patience for that. Lord help me. But somebody please make a decision. Usually I'm the person that's like, somebody make a decision. Make up your mind. Let's come to a consensus. So he said, we notice the contradictory and inconsistent wishes that we have, and then we'd stop working against ourselves. So we just took a moment, we stepped back and said, what is it that we want to accomplish? Before we even set out, for example, for the theme park, what is it that you want to accomplish while you're there? Do you want to go on all the roller coasters? Exactly. People have a lot to say until it's time to speak up. Do you want to go on all the roller coasters? Do you want to eat first? Do you want to eat in the middle? Do you want to make sure that you hit the gift shop on our way out or on our way in? So what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Because if you don't even have some basic goals set up, like they're saying here, your prayers will begin to war against your prayers. Your plans and your decisions will begin to war against your other plans. And you will find yourself being inconsistent. And one thing I can tell you is inconsistent people have a hard time in their relationships, plural. Because inconsistent people are frustrating. And nobody really wants to live life around frustrating people. So that's something that you can think about. Am I deceiving myself? Am I living my life divided? Am I known as the person who can never make up their mind about anything? And I have to have somebody come along and help me make a decision? Or am I learning how to do that myself? All right. Next devotion, and then we have one more after this. Somebody type, don't let this go to your head. Don't let this go to your head. Don't let this go to your head. Marcus Aurelius said this, make sure, and this is a good one for leadership, period. Make sure, thank you, Prophet. Make sure you're not made emperor. Avoid that imperial stain. It can happen to you. So keep yourself simple, good, pure, saintly, plain, a friend of justice, God-fearing, gracious, affectionate, and strong for your proper work. Fight to remain the person that philosophy wished to make you. Revere the God and look after each other. Life is short. The fruit of this life is a good character and acts for the common good. This is advice that Marcus Aurelius gave to himself, but he also gave to the people around him, and we'll read why. Okay. But he says, basically, make sure that somebody doesn't push you up or make you to be the chief. You know, like the chief of whatever, the master, whoever. He said, try to avoid being made the emperor. Fight to remain the person that philosophy, in other words, your principles desired to make you. Fight to remain that person. Fight to be the person who has good character and who acts for the common good of the people. Because it can be very, very, very enticing to take on the role of emperor and all that means. So let's look at this. It is difficult to even conceive of what life must have been like for Marcus Aurelius, because he wasn't born an emperor, nor did he obtain the position deliberately. It was simply thrust upon him, right? They say some people are made leaders, some people are born leaders, and for some, they have leadership thrust upon them. They weren't asking for it, but the people desired to make them the leader. Somewhat like Jesus, if you look in John chapter 7, Jesus, when he came onto the scene, there were people who were trying to apprehend Jesus and take him and make him king of the Jews. And Jesus was like, I didn't come to the earth to do that. I didn't come to the earth to be a politician. I came to the earth to release not just natural freedom, but I came to the earth to release spiritual and eternal freedom. But yet there were people that would follow Jesus around trying to apprehend him and make him king of the Jews. In other words, they were trying to wrap their arms around him, right? And they were trying to put him in a certain place and preserve him the way they saw him leading the people. They wanted to just solidify him in that place, in that era, in that time, and they failed to realize that what Jesus came to do was transcendent of time and space. Somebody's going to catch that tomorrow. What Jesus came to do transcended their thought process of who he was. So if he would have just been a people pleaser, if he would have just been trying to go along with what the people needed in that time frame, then he would have missed his ultimate purpose, which was not just to make a difference in Rome and in Judea at that time, but his purpose was to make a difference outside of time, right? Because he came to set the captives free, and he came to free people from sin, past, present for him, and future. So if you look at Jesus's writings, he's always talking about, I'm not just doing this for the people who need to be set free from sin right now. I'm doing this for the people who will come after you and after me and after I'm gone off the earth. So Jesus understood that his purpose was transcendent. Some of us still not getting that. Jesus understood his purpose was transcendent. So even though he came, as the scripture says, in the volume of the book to do God's will, he came in a specific time frame, in a specific body, among a specific ethnic group that people like to ignore, right? His purpose was ultimately transcended beyond that. Okay? So, Marcus Aurelius wasn't born emperor, nor did he obtain the position deliberately. It was simply thrust upon him. Nevertheless, he was suddenly the richest man in the world, head of the most powerful army on earth at the time, ruling over the largest empire in history, considered a god among men. Do you know how many people would not have been able to handle that power? We have people that let being president of the lollipop committee go to their head. much less having power over the entire world, much less being considered a god amongst men. Even Jesus didn't let his power go to his head. What did Jesus say in the Garden of Gethsemane to the soldiers? I mean, Jesus said one word. People miss that. Jesus said one word in the garden and everybody fell out. There's a scripture, if you read all of the different accounts, there's a scripture in there where before those soldiers were actually able to apprehend Jesus, all he did was say one word and everybody was out. Then he allowed them to take him into captivity. And then he said, if I wanted to, I could have called down legions of angels to assist me. So please understand that I gave up my life willingly. So even Jesus didn't let power go to his head. He could have. He could have just said, die, and people would have dropped dead. But he didn't do that. So, again, how many people could handle this kind of power that Marcus Aurelius had? And even he was saying, the fruit of this life is a good character and acts for the common good. Whenever you see people who don't think character is important and who don't think that acting for the common good of the people, number 45, who don't think acts for the common good of the people is a good thing, be careful. This is a dangerous person. We're seeing the results of that. We're seeing the results of having an administration that does not want to act for the common good of the people. Now everybody got to be an activist. People who never ever saw themselves being an activist now have to be an activist, because if you don't, we're going to be in some serious trouble, because we have people in office that don't want to act for the common good of all people. All right. So he says, it's no wonder he wrote little messages like this one to remind himself not to spin off the planet. Without them, Marcus might have lost his sense of what was important, falling prey to the lies from all the people who needed things from him. OMG. Do you know when people need stuff from you, they will boost your head up? They will tell you all kind of flattering stuff when you are a need to them. So when they feel like they need you, they will tell you whatever you want to hear. So he could have fallen prey to people just lying to him about how wonderful he was or how great he was, simply because they were opportunists and they needed something from him. All right. And here we are, whatever we happen to be doing, at risk of spinning off ourselves. Somebody type, don't spin off today. Don't spin off today. Stay grounded. I don't care if you're a leader. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur. I don't care if you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Don't spin off today. Don't take on the emperor mindset, because you may wind up like the story of the emperor with the emperor's new clothes, where everybody was lying to him about how wonderful his wardrobe was, and he ain't have on no clothes. We don't want that. When we experience success, we must make sure that it doesn't change us, that we continue to maintain our character despite the temptation not to. Reason must lead the way no matter what good fortune comes along. So, people say, oh, this person has changed because of their power, or they've changed because of their money. They haven't changed. Power money reveals whether or not you had character in the first place. I'm going to take a sip on that. Character is who you are when nobody's looking, who you are when you're not forced to perform. That's character. Money and power reveal whether or not you had character to begin with. If you were a shyster to begin with, money and power is only going to reveal it. If you were mean to begin with, money and power is only going to reveal it. In other words, if you were only being nice because you were poor and you didn't have anything, when you get money and power, you're going to be mean as a rattlesnake. Because money and power will reveal what you already were. So if somebody says, oh my gosh, ever since she got that promotion, I mean, she's just walking around being a little dictator. She was a nice, kind person, but ever since she got that promotion, now she's just stepping on people on her way up. No. That was already there. Money and power just revealed that it was already there. All right? So think about that. Last one for today. And I did go ahead and order this because, as you can see, I'm having a very, very wonderful time in it. The last one for today is actually for April 5th. And it says, trust but verify. And I've actually heard people say this before. Somebody type on the screen, trust but verify. Trust but verify. And then we're going to close with this one. This is a statement from Epictetus. He says, thank you. First off, don't let the force of the impression carry you away. Say to that force, hold up a bit and let me see who you are and where you're from. Let me put you to the test. Trust, but verify. So, I can tell you one specific example, even in the Word of God, where that was true. And that was with the life of Joseph, right? After Joseph hadn't seen his brothers in 20 years, he had forgiven them, but he was going to verify. Joseph did some verification before he revealed himself that he had not died in the desert, that he had not been killed off as a slave. Because the last time that they saw Joseph, he was chained to a caravan being walked through the sand away from his brothers. And remember, his brothers said, we shall see what becomes of this dreamer. So here it is, 20 years later, they're in Egypt. His brothers arrive. They don't recognize Joseph. But Joseph does not immediately go up to them and says, oh my gosh, my long lost brethren. No, he doesn't do that. He verifies. Have these jokers changed? Or are they still willing to sell people down the river? Have they changed? Or do they still have murderous intent? Have they changed? Or are they still operating deceptively? Have they changed? Or are they willing to sacrifice their own selves so that their youngest brother can live? Have they changed? And have they learned how to be brothers that stick close? Exactly. Right? There's a saying that says, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Trust, but verify. Hold up. Let me see who you are. Let me see where you're from. Let me see what you're about. Let me put you to the test. Now, we're not talking about hazing, because that's a whole other conversation. There are some people who will never trust anybody. They won't ever trust anybody. And so you will spend your entire life being hazed by them and they still won't trust you. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about basic verification. So the commentary reads, one of the wonders of your mind is the quickness with which it can comprehend and categorize things. As Malcolm Gladwell wrote in Blink, we are constantly making split-second decisions based on years of experience and knowledge, as well as using the same skill to confirm our prejudices, our stereotypes, and our assumptions. I'll give you an example. Other day I was online and I was talking on someone's post about America's what I see as intentional programming to re-niggerize black people. And what do I mean by that? It means to get black people to be entertained by mindless stuff, to be entertained by things that are destructive for our culture, to buy into it, to produce it, to support it financially, to the point where the image of black people in this country is so degraded that should people start wanting to just shoot us down in the streets and kill us off, that there will actually be people, and I see it online all the time, there are actually people who say, oh, black people have turned into animals, so it won't really matter if we kill them off anyway. That's what I call reniggerization. That we've come out of a place of being the slave, and now with some of the things that are happening in our culture, you're re-enslaving the mind of black people. All right. So I wrote this statement, and then somebody who had no knowledge of me, they just proceeded to just give me this whole rundown and try to tell me off and say I'm a Democrat and you just keep voting for the Democrats and you're stupid and I bet you don't even know about Planned Parenthood and how they're trying to take out the black community, but yeah, you just keep going on this tangent. And I had to say, sir, you don't even know me. You don't know me? First of all, what gave you the impression to even write all this stuff? Oh, I know what it was. You saw my profile picture and assumed because I was a black woman that I believe in abortion, that I'm a Democrat, that I'm a liberal, and that I just vote for anybody. Because clearly, that's what you believe about black women. And it was shown in what you wrote to me, and you don't even know me. And then I said, oh, and by the way, I've been working for over 20 years now to help people understand the detriment of abortion to the black community. So thank you for what you've shared. But I've been working on this for over 20 years. No response after that. Why? Because I did not confirm his prejudice, his stereotypes, and his assumptions. And sometimes you don't have to be nasty to people, right? You don't have to be rude to people, but you just need to let them know that I don't fit into your box of prejudice. I don't fit into your stereotype, and I don't fit into your assumptions. And there's ways to do that without being mean, rude, or insulting, right? So clearly, thinking is a source of strength, whereas the latter is a great weakness. He says, we lose very little by taking a moment to consider our own thoughts. So even as you go throughout your day-to-day, consider your own thoughts, such as, Is this really so bad? What do I really know about this person? Why do I have such strong feelings about certain subject matter? Is anxiety adding to my situation? What is so special about the people in my life that I'm engaging with on a daily basis? By asking these questions in others, by putting our impressions to the test, put your impressions of a person to the test. I'm going to say this. A lot of people lose out on great, genuine friendships because they have gone by someone else's impression. I'm going to say that one more time. A lot of people lose out on great, genuine friendships because they have relied on and gone by someone else's impression, when you didn't get that impression at all. But because Sister Quita or Brother Billy Bob told you, don't talk to them, don't hang around them. Now all of a sudden, again, going back to our other devotional, what kind of thoughts are you holding up here? You begin to take on those negative thoughts. So now you have not allowed your own impression to form. You've only taken on the impression of the people you already know. And you didn't allow your own impression to form, and therefore you wind up missing out on a person who could have been very instrumental in your life because you didn't stop to evaluate and test your own impressions. He said if we do this, we're less likely to be carried away by our impressions or make a move on a mistaken or biased impression. I'm going to say that again. If we put our impressions to the test, we're less likely to be carried away by them or make a move based on a mistaken or biased impression. We're still free to use our instincts, but we should always, as the Russian proverb says, trust but verify. Trust, but verify. Is what I'm feeling, is the impression I'm getting really the truth? Or do I need to verify it? I thank God for a husband who verified his impression of me rather than just going by what other people said to him about me. And see, I'm only going to talk about my own life. But when my husband first had an interest in me, thank you, Lady Vanessa. When my husband first had interest in me, he was told that I was a Jezebel. Like, okay. I was 19. I didn't even know what a Jezebel was. He was told that I was a Jezebel and that he didn't want to, that I shouldn't be anywhere near him or around him, right? And he was told this by a gentleman in the church that I considered at the time, because my impression of him was he was a Lothario, or what do you call that? A Pentecostal pimp. My first impression of him was that he was a Pentecostal pimp because he would go around after church services and he would be all smoozing up against all of the single ladies and just kind of going around, and hugging them up. And when he got to me, at that point in time, I wasn't letting any man touch me. Any man. Old, young, my age, not my age. And so when he got to me and he tried to give me a intimate front body hug, I actually said, I don't hug anyone. So I stopped him and I said, I don't hug anyone. And he got offended. And I know that because he got offended, that he decided to drop off some information about me that was not true. To this day, he still doesn't know that I know he dropped off that information. Right? So it's not necessary for me to tell him that I know. I just know. So he told my husband, who was just a friend at the time, that I was a Jezebel and that he didn't need to be anywhere near me or around me. Well, my husband had already saw me preaching the gospel, going to the homeless shelter, going to the juvenile detention center. In other words, my husband had already saw me in the action of walking out some of the things that Christ says for us to do. So my husband said to him, what makes her a Jezebel? See, I'm helping some men right now. What makes her a Jezebel? Why are you calling her a Jezebel? Then my husband started asking him specific questions. He said, has she tried to come on to you? Well, no. Has she tried to get with you? Well, no. Has she tried to, rub up against you or anything like that? Well, no. Has she, have you seen her with other guys? Well, not really. Okay, well, what have you seen her do? What have you seen her do? Well, and here's what he said. Well, she goes to church too much. She's going to prayer too much. She's always in prayer. I wish I was making this up, but it's funny to me now. She's always in prayer. She's always in Bible study. Really? That's my crime? I wouldn't flirt with you. And I was always going to a service, which was true, because I was trying to stay saved and build myself up in my holy faith. And I was always in prayer, which was true. So once he said that to my husband realized, okay, this dude has a personal problem with her. What am I saying? Trust, but verify. And because my husband verified and asked him to qualify his statements, and he could not qualify his statements, then my husband ignored him. And of course, after that point, they were no longer close friends, right? Because if I was going to be in his life, that foolishness certainly was not going to stay there. So to this day, I am now happily married. And, my life has gone on. And thankfully, my husband trusted and verified and did not just take the impression of one particular guy who really, when it boiled down to it, had no facts behind what he was saying about me. But how many, and I'm talking to men right now though, but how many men don't verify what's being said about their woman of interest? I know, Prophet, several. And so they're going by what someone has said, and they are not verifying whether or not it's even true. They just take it and they run with it. And, unfortunately, not just in romantic relationships, but in relationships in general, people tend to take what is said to them and they don't stop to verify it. So I would encourage you, as we're closing today, because I know I'm way over time. Yeah, they're missing out on a good thing. And sometimes it happens to women too. Someone shared with me recently, that, and I won't go into detail, but a very similar situation on the female side to where their relationship ended because somebody got in there and started giving bad impressions of the person. And they did not verify whether or not the impression was true. Okay? So I encourage you, as you're going through your day-to-day, as you're thinking, take a moment to consider what you're thinking on. Take a moment to consider, are my thoughts really true? Are they really lining up with reality? Or is it just, as the scriptures call it, a vain imagination? Right? You meet people and they are so fearful. Why are they so fearful? They have taken on so many vain imaginations and so many thoughts of what could happen, what could go wrong, what could possibly be tragic, that you start seeing that they're living their entire life out of the realm of fear. They're so afraid of what might happen that they stop living. They stop living. And so again, going back to our first one, what you color your thoughts with, your life will be dyed the same. What you color your thoughts with, your life will be dyed the same. Be wary of what you let into your mind. Don't let your mind just simply entertain stuff without critically thinking about it. Don't be deceived and divided by your own thoughts. Don't pray against your own plans. Don't have one mindset of what you desire to do, but all of your actions are in conflict with your desires. Don't let leadership and rulership go to your head. Examine your character, right? And make sure you're acting for the good of the common people. And lastly, trust but verify. Don't be so hard on yourself when you get it wrong, but make sure you're actually stopping and taking the time to think about your impressions and make sure your impressions are based on reality and not false and vain imaginations. All right? So I've read for you today some meditations out of the Daily Stoic. I have ordered this book because I believe it is helpful. It is very practical. And so once my copy comes in, we'll definitely be reading some more from the Daily Stoic. I hope that you all have a great and wonderful day. Thank you all for hanging in with me. I am way past time, so I do apologize. But I do appreciate you guys coming back in for part 2. And if you want to catch the replay, you'll be able to do that. This is Daring Dialogues, and I am your host, Shantae Charles. For those of you who are just coming in, we are actually closing up. Please come back. Tomorrow we'll be back with Theology Thursday. So we'll be back talking about atheism, and we'll be also back talking about world religions. So if you have been wanting to get some study in, some extra study on religions, we're going to be doing that on Thursday, tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right? And if you want to get in contact with me, You can check out my bio information. All of my contact information is there. And I hope that you all have a great and wonderful day. Take care and God bless. We'll see if this lets me go. No. It's not letting me off. Periscope is holding me prisoner right now. It's not letting me off. All right. So again, if you want more information, also we do have these videos. Some of them are on my YouTube archives as well. I'm tapping. They're on my YouTube channel as well, and the YouTube information is also in the bio. Take care, and let's see if Periscope will allow me to sign off.